it's still the biggest buy-in I've ever bought myself for.
Wow. I'm just thinking about it, and I really do think that game specifically is gonna like go down probably in poker history as like kind of like a watershed moment. Hey guys, Connor Richards of PokerNews here, and this is Life Outside Poker. My guest for this episode is chess streamer Alexandra Botez, who I caught up with last year at WSOP Paradise. We talked about her streaming career, getting more into poker, and what we can expect now that she's a brand ambassador for GGPoker. Let's get into it. Okay, Alexandra, thank you for doing this. I'm super excited. For this podcast, you know, I try and talk to people within the poker world who also do stuff outside of poker. And so, you know, as both a streamer and also a chess player, I'm super excited to talk to you. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So we're here at WSOP Paradise. You just had a cash in the super main event. I believe it was your biggest poker cash. Is that right?
Yep, biggest one.
So we'll get to all that and how you got into poker, but I want to go back even further because I know that your parents migrated to the U.S. from Romania.
You mean my dad right there? Dad, come wave to the camera.
Hey, bună ziua.
Great shout out right there. So we've got your dad right here, and was it your dad who was the one who got you into chess?
And poker, yeah.
And poker as well. Mm-hmm. That resonates with me because my dad is a poker player. That's how I got into this game. So that's awesome. But so talk about those early years, and when did you first realize you had a true passion for chess?
So my dad taught me how to play when I was 6. Honestly, Dad, you should say if you ever thought I was good at chess and how. I'm not curious his answer. I don't know it.
Of course. I figure out you're good at 6.
At 6? Why?
Because after 3 months of training, seriously, you won your first tournament.
Oh, that's a good story. Apparently, after 3 months of training, I won my first tournament. Let's go, 6-year-old.
That's pretty impressive. And I know with kids whose parents push them to do things like this, you know, sometimes the passions dwindle out or, you know, they move on to other things. But you're really stuck with chess. And yeah, what made you stick with it?
There were actually moments when I wanted to quit, and my dad sort of held me accountable to playing. But then we moved from Canada to the US, and I lost all of my friends, became a mega nerd, and then chess became my escape. So honestly, it's not glamorous, but that's why I started trying really hard. And then my best friends were from chess. So then when you have your friends playing the same thing you do, you're just so much more motivated to get better. Which is probably also a reason why there are usually fewer women in chess, because they usually have more friends that are girls, but I feel like I was like a boy in a girl's body.
I've talked to other people, you know, successful poker players, and one of the questions that I'll ask you later is like, what's a piece of advice you'd give to your younger self, or do you regret anything, or things like that? And something successful people sometimes say is like, they wish they would have had more fun, you know, they wish they would have taken it a little less serious. When you look back on your like childhood or high school years, do you wish that, or are you happy that you were so motivated?
No, misery creates greatness.
Yeah.
Although it's cool to be happy if you can.
No, I think that's great, and it's gotten you to where you are today. So another connection that I realized we had is I also went to Stanford.
Nice. What year?
I did a master's there in 2019 in journalism, so probably a little after you. When did you graduate?
2017.
2017, okay. And I think it was at Stanford that you began streaming for the first time chess. Is that right?
Yeah, so I had actually been posting on Facebook pages back in the day from when I was in high school, and I'd post chess puzzles and all these things. So I'd grown my following to around 30,000 on Facebook, which nobody uses anymore. And the CEO of chess.com, he also went to Stanford, and he noticed. So I started doing commentary for chess.com, and then I started streaming as well during my senior year.
That's awesome. And when did your sister get involved? You have a sister. You guys are always on social media doing great bits. It's got to be fun to have somebody to bounce ideas off of that with. But yeah, when did you get her involved?
I started getting my sister on stream when she was just 15 because she was really funny, and we do some sibling matches. And then when it was her last year of high school, I told her, don't go to college, come stream with me. And also my parents had paid for my university, and they said that what they want back is for me to pay for my sister's. So I just convinced her not to go.
Well, there you go. And so sticking on college for a little bit, what did you study while you were there?
I studied international relations with a focus on China. Was super into that for a while, moved to China for half a year, realized I'd never have a competitive advantage, and then I came back and being in Silicon Valley, I ended up working in entrepreneurship, starting a company with some of my technical friends, and we ended up getting funding while I was still in college.
What was the interest in China? Does that have to do with chess or anything like that?
When I was young, I would travel internationally a lot, and I had learned a lot of languages. I grew up speaking English and Romanian, and then I also had to do French in Canada, Spanish in high school, and I was like, I really want to learn Mandarin. I think China is going to be the most important bilateral relationship the US is going to have over the next 10 to 20 years. I want to know as much about it as I can. So I just got really, really intrigued, studied Mandarin every day for like 2 years, went to live there. It was just such a fascinating culture for me.
So I mentioned that I studied journalism, and so with that, I was introduced to video editing or social media production. But it seems like studying international relations, you probably had to figure all that out on your own as you're getting into streaming. And yeah, when did you realize that you had a knack for content creation?
I actually didn't really even feel like I had a knack for content creation. I think Twitch is a really unique platform where, honestly, for the first year, I was just streaming on a webcam and computer with like pretty basic software, and I would just play chess and talk to my community. It's one of the sites where like you can actually get big just from being a gamer. So it's much more so that like I was a chess player who also liked streaming.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So let's stick on chess a little bit. I wish I was a skilled chess player and could ask you more technical questions, but I do think our audience would be interested just in, the similarities between poker and chess. One is a game of more complete information than the other, but what would you describe as kind of the similarities and differences between the two games?
So I get asked this a lot, but actually something I was thinking about last night is how when you're playing chess, you know exactly how the pieces move. Like, the knight moves, how the pawns move. When you're studying poker, like, if you've been studying a lot of GTO, you can know that there are technical spots, but what's unpredictable is like you don't know people and you have to bucket them in. Like, are they even going to play GTO? Or are they just going to play something else? And it just allows for a lot more creativity and chance and personalities than chess does. But at the same time, getting good at either of them requires a lot of time and hours and technical skills and a lot of commitment.
So you would say poker's a more creative game than chess?
It's creative in a different way, where I think it can potentially benefit people to have a different skill set than chess. So like for chess, a lot more of it is on calculating or things like that, whereas I think some people are incredibly good at reading others. That's something that would not give you any advantage in chess. So I like the added element of psychology.
And so how about poker? You mentioned that it was your dad who got you into both chess and poker, but yeah, when did poker become a passion? And when did you start thinking like, hey, I'm going to play on big streams or go play at big tournaments internationally?
So I think I always like games that I'm good at because I'm really competitive and I like winning. When I was like 10 or so, my dad would play like an online game with his colleagues and he had to go early one day, so he let me play. And I beat all of them, and he went to work. He was like, haha, my 8-year-old daughter beat all of you guys. I know none of this is allowed, whatever. It's just a hypothetical. So I remember that. I remember it was really fun. And then in middle school, like I'd play gambling games with people for like pencils and erasers. Again, I was just always really into making weird bets since I was a kid. And then in college, I sort of played casually. And it was only until maybe like 3 years ago where I got invited to like a heads-up championship because they were trying to get more creators into poker. And that was the first time I learned like any more serious poker. And I ended up winning that one as well. I was like, oh, that's so cool at least for the creators. So I think part of it was having a lot of results, and the other was just always liking the game.
Yeah, I think the first time I remember seeing you playing poker was maybe that Hustler Casino Live creators game, which was an insane game. I'm trying to think, but was that the one where like Helmuth was there and Ninja was there and all that craziness, Mr. Beast and stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
And if I recall, you completely crushed that game. You ended up like, six figures, 450K. So almost $500,000. That's pretty crazy. What do you credit that to? Were you running hot, or do you think you've got a big edge over people like that?
I think I was running hot. I think I was also kind of crazy. But also it just felt like such an exciting game that I was willing to buy myself in. It's still the biggest buy-in I've ever bought myself for.
Wow. I'm just thinking about it, and I really do think that game specifically is going to like go down probably in poker history as like kind of like a watershed moment as far as like getting people introduced to the game and bringing new audiences. And I mean, yeah, like I said, I remember it from 2 years ago or whenever it was. What are some of the things you've done since then? We're here at WSOP Paradise. You're now a GGPoker ambassador. We've also seen you at other stops. The 2023 PCA comes to mind. What other poker things have you done?
I've been playing a lot of home games.
Okay.
Playing some tournaments online whenever I'm in Canada. What else have I been doing? Smaller tournaments in the LA area and Vegas. Basically, playing tournaments whenever I can. And one thing I want to do for next year that was really hard this year is that I'd sort of alternate from chess to poker in very short lapses, and that's really hard because then it would kind of kill my momentum in one of the games. So assuming that I'm going to compete in chess and poker moving forward, I want to think about it more like seasons. Like when someone's doing soccer in the spring and, basketball in the winter. I don't know anything about sports for when they do it. But batching things up, I realize, is a lot better for progress. And one of the things that I enjoy about games is just self-improvement. That's very addicting for me. And if I feel like I cannot be my best self at a game I'm playing, it's really hard for me to enjoy it, even if I win.
And as far as, that sort of improvement or getting better, I'm sure you have access to a lot of very successful poker players who are probably willing to offer you some coaching. So, one, are there people who you've learned from? And then two, are there poker players who you've given chess training to?
Yeah, no, I have a lot of friends who I've asked for advice a lot, and it's really helpful. And in terms of chess advice, honestly, most people aren't trying that hard at chess. So I can't think of a poker player who's really trying hard at chess right now that I'm close with.
So one memory I remember, I think it was this stop last year, but outside in the hallways here, they have some tables set up. And I remember you playing some like blitz chess or speed chess with, I think, just random people. I think anyone who, wanted to bet $100 that they could beat you. And I sat and watched a couple rounds and, it looked like you ended up every time. And but yeah, what was that experience like?
Well, there was actually one grandmaster here, and he didn't tell me he was a grandmaster, and he came. And,
he tried to hustle?
Oh my god, this guy's really good. But honestly, there's a lot of good chess players from the poker community. So, actually a lot of close games when I'm at these events.
Yeah. So how about that format specifically, speed chess? What are some of the things, because, you have that in poker as well. You have turbo structures and probably it suits some players' strategies better. What sort of chess style does the fast-paced game benefit, if that makes sense?
I think people who are more based on intuition and people who think faster, maybe not better, but faster.
Okay, good advice. So another chess question that I have is, obviously, like during the pandemic, the Queen's Gambit came out, and probably the combination of people being stuck at home, needing things to watch, that just became a really big phenomenon. It probably, started some sort of chess boom. Do you think that's accurate? Or what do you think the kind of cultural impact of that movie is?
So it definitely helped start a chess boom, and it pushed chess into global significance in the sense that like all of the different news media sources were covering chess sets were selling out. So that was incredible. All of a sudden, chess transitioned from being this nerdy, niche game to something that everyone thought was cool, which I never thought was going to happen in my lifetime, even though I was working on it.
That's funny, though, because, you are also part of that movement, just chess streamers and stuff, making it more popular and, I don't know, less of a nerdy thing.
Honestly, it was really much the pandemic because everyone was at home, so they were watching live streams. So live streams exploded, and then a lot of chess players started being online, and I had already been streaming then, so I was already sort of set up because I was very early.
Yeah. And so sticking on that movie, I think I've seen what you've said about it is you said that it's not necessarily accurate with how it portrays how female chess players would be treated in the era. So kind of sticking on that subject, what is your experience like as a woman in chess, and where are the areas of improvement?
This has been a topic that I've definitely been thinking more deeply on lately. Because I realized like I never really felt like I was a girl in chess when I was growing up, and I think it's because the way I was raised from my dad to just not even think about those things. So like even if I was one or two of the only girls in a tournament hall, I didn't even think about it. I think it only started coming into my consciousness probably even after I was 18. And I think it started coming in my consciousness because everyone asks, what's it like to be a woman in chess? And then, of course, you know, there are moments when people will say things like, yeah, like women are just not as good at chess as men are. And this is something that happens a lot more commonly in different areas of the world. I actually think in Canada and the US, we're pretty blessed because it's a lot more progressive. I'm Eastern European, and like when it's Eastern European or Russians, like even sometimes I get it like from women who are like, yeah, men are just better because they have more stamina. It's a physical thing. And then the other question people always ask is like, oh, how do we get more women in chess? And I actually think the correct answer is more like just treat the women in chess better. Like if more women want to play chess, that's amazing. I don't think we need to force women to play more chess. I just think we should try to make the conditions as good as possible for the ones who are in it. And honestly, the chess community has been really progressive because like there's female titles, there's female prizes. Now people are way more serious about like reporting any kind of harassment or things like that. Of course, there's downsides where like people will treat at you sometimes, will stare at you differently. You will get some creepy people who are following you around occasionally sometimes. Maybe you feel like a minority and you feel left out. But I actually think it's gotten way, way better. But credit to where it's due because there were a lot of female players, if you look at the generation before us, who absolutely did not have this luxury. Like the first woman to qualify in the candidates, which qualifies for the World Championship, wasn't allowed to play because she was female. The third woman to ever become a grandmaster, Pia Kramling, would write her name as P. Kramling because she didn't want to get criticism for being a woman, so she pretended her name to be masculine. So I think the generation before had a ton of barriers. I think our generation now has been given the gifts of the work they did, and we should be really appreciative for it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And maybe less of a gender thing, but just being a content creator, you know, even I'm getting this now, having a show on YouTube, but how do you deal with, I don't know, negativity online or probably harassment or things like that?
I mean, it sucks sometimes, but it's usually short-lived unless it's like a really big blow-up. Honestly, it's one of the challenges of the job.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about this WSOP Paradise because we had the $50 million guaranteed super main event. You came down here and played it. It was a $25,000 buy-in event. That's probably your biggest tournament buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
And you did very well. You made it through day 2. You made it into the money. And then, yeah, we're recording this now on day 3. This won't be coming out till later, but you got your biggest recorded cash locked up. I know that the minimum cash was $50,000, and that would have been your biggest cash, but how did you end up in the event?
I ended up making one pay jump.
Nice.
So I think I cashed like 67K. I did use 3 bullets, so, you know, still tough, but regardless, it's the hardest field I've ever cashed in.
Any notable pros or players that people would recognize who were at your tables?
Vanessa.
Oh, Vanessa Selps? Yeah.
Yes. I was sitting, who else do I think people would recognize very easily? Bryn Kenny.
Oh, really?
I saw him go from 100K chips to 3.5 mil in an orbit and a half.
Yeah.
It was wild.
That is poker's all-time money leader at the moment, ahead of Justin Bonomo. So yeah, that's a tough one to play against. Probably about as tough as it gets. Bust-out hands are never fun, but so we don't need to dwell on it. But yeah, what ended up happening today? How'd you end up going out?
Well, I got blinded down to 7.5 bigs, and I was like reviewing all my charts yesterday, and I was on the button with Jack 9 off, which I really didn't want to shove, but I remembered it being on, and I was trying to stick to like what I'm supposed to do, even though I asked some of my poker friends after, and then they told me like, no, I would fold that. And I haven't been able to check GTO Wizard because it doesn't work on mobile. So I'm like, shit, did I just like fold in a wrong spot after being so tight for so long, and I'm still dwelling on it. I still feel bad about it. Honestly, I wouldn't have even shoved if I wasn't studying. Like imagine prepping and then playing worse because of it, which maybe is what happened. But yeah, it wasn't very interesting. I just shoved, got called, by ace-6 off on the big blind, and he turned quads.
So we just found out that the last 10 minutes or so of this video got cut off. So I'm going to be asking you these questions again, and hopefully you're able to come up with your answers again. But starting off, what's a book that you would recommend?
Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
And what is it about that book? Why do you think people should read that?
So he was a psychologist who ended up being put in Auschwitz. And it basically teaches you that the man who has a why can get through any how. And it's a really sad, but also beautiful and inspiring book.
It sounds like a heavy book, but a very good one to recommend to people. And this was a question that I kind of teased earlier and said I was going to ask you, but what is a piece of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Buy more Bitcoin.
That's a good one. Other people have given similar financial advice. Doesn't get better advice than that. And then the last question here, I like asking people what their favorite life lesson is from poker because it's a game of so many metaphors. So with that in mind, what is your favorite life lesson from poker?
Sometimes when something happens to you in real life, I think, at least for myself, I internalize it as my own fault, even though in reality, there's a lot of variance in what happens as well. So to just not be so hard on yourself when things happen related to chance.
That's great. Well, Alexandra, it's been a lot of fun talking to you, and we'll see you at future Poker Stops. Thanks for your time.
Great to be here.